Hmm. Morning, Brian, Richard. Can you guys hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you
Perfect.
hear me?
Yes. I'll
All
go ahead.
right, very good.
If you guys have a presentation, I made you a co-host. You should be able to share using that.
Okay, that sounds good.
So it's just 8 o'clock now. We'll give it another couple minutes to let folks hop on and filter in. I know it's a lovely morning out there in Illinois. It's very pretty, but also kind of messy. Probably isn't too bad up by you, Ryan, is it?
Oh, I love the snow, Andrew. I'm having a great day.
See, I really don't know whether you're being sarcastic or not, because you might
I'm
actually.
not being sarcastic. Like I live for snow days, so it's beautiful. We haven't had any hardly this year. This is only the third time it's snowing this season. So
Well, it snowed just enough to be a pain in the butt down here, but then not cancel school.
yeah, it's weird here too. It's like really slippery underneath, but the snow's pretty on top.
It is very slippery underneath. I can attest to that. I saw a semi, the junction I-39, I-55, a semi ramp jumped off of like the uh embankment and probably about a 40-foot drop down onto the grass below. So
Oh wow,
was a
that
good.
was a fun ride.
I bet that driver, if he's okay, or they're okay, had an eventful night last night or morning, early morning probably.
Yeah.
And then we had a couple folks still trying to hop on. A couple folks were on the wrong Zoom, so I'm waiting to make sure that gets situated, and we'll start here in just about 2 minutes.
It has been a busy Zoom week. It's easy to get on the wrong one.
It is, and we really confused you last week with what we did. I know, so
One more tomorrow.
yes, and one more Friday, but you won't be on that one, Ron.
I won't be on that one.
All right. Well, we'll go ahead and get kicked off. This is being recorded for folks who may miss it a little bit, and also the folks who couldn't join us here today, which I know the weather might have something to do with that. People might be plowing or moving snow or doing some of that this morning, but we have some written feedback, which I will try to pull up in question format here and toward the end of the call. Wanted to introduce the team from the USDA's Regional Risk Management Agency Regional Office, which is based in Springfield, and Brian Frieden, Richard Sarf, and David Niepert with that team based out of RMA. I know we worked a lot with them last summer on the double crop expansion policy issues, and I know Jeff on the phone, you've talked with Brian many times on that topic and his team as well going forward. They have some important updates and questions they'd like feedback on about some potential changes to soybean crop insurance policies here in Illinois for this growing season. Some big news, which Brian previewed with me yesterday, which I don't know we shared before, but we'll steal his thunder because he has some big news about a key issue with crop insurance he may share here. But I will turn it over to Brian and the RMA team to walk you through what they're thinking about changes. If at any time you have questions and feedback, we can either do those in process or we can save those for the end and go through a Q&A at the end of the presentation. So I'll turn it over to Brian and how best he wants to handle that.
All right. Well, I appreciate it. Can you see my my presentation?
Yes, we can.
All right. So really appreciate, I've worked with Andrew, and I know I've had a number of conversations with Jeff and some of the other board members, and really appreciate the feedback and the information we get from you. We want to do the same thing. We want crop insurance to work for you the same as you want crop insurance to work. So I think the goal is the same. We want to make sure and share what information we have. And then there's some things that we want feedback on. So I'm going to talk about some changes we're making for 2023 on the earliest planting date, which is something that I think probably 3 years ago or so when we met with the board, that was something that they wanted us to do. We only made a small incremental change at that time. We're making additional changes this year. And then we want to talk about the double crop initiative and where we're going there, and then follow up with specialty type soybeans and what opportunities or options you have and the kind of feedback that we need to move forward with some changes there. So first, on the earliest planting date, we are moving those dates significantly earlier. In the northern part of the state, it's 9 days, but in the other two, as we move further south, is 10 days. So we're doing this. We didn't only look at Illinois, but we looked at our region, and our region covers these 4 states. So as you see from this, we'll be moving to 420 in the southern part of the state, or actually 4.5 in the southern part of the state, 4.10 in central, and then 4.15 in the northern tier of Illinois. So those dates are significantly earlier. It was based on research and data, and Dave Niepert, who's on the phone, they're on the call with us, worked a lot on those. And then also the feedback we've gotten from you and the changes in technology and climate and a lot of those things that play into that. So these are the dates that you'll have for 2023 crop year. What that means, really it ties into the replant. So if you're out there and you plant after these dates and you have an issue with the crop and you need to replant, those are covered under our policy. So that's the impact of this change and what it means to you. And as we go along, if you have any questions, make sure and just ask as we go. But I think this is probably the big change for 2023 that we had a lot of feedback from you, and we wanted to make sure that you're aware of it. All right, on the double crop initiative, this was trying to increase and make it easier for producers to ensure double crop in areas where we don't have that coverage available. So basically the upper half of Illinois, and we'll talk about what that means. We looked at a number of different options. We looked at program expansion, which would build that practice into those counties that don't offer it. We also looked at, right now you can insure it. That process is a written agreement that you would request through your agent, goes through your company to us, and we would underwrite it and issue you an offer, and then you could sign that if you wanted to. So blanket written agreements, and we'll kind of detail that a little bit. That's kind of a simplified version of that where all that information is there. And if you want to insure it, you can. There are some drawbacks of that, but it does provide you coverage without going through full expansion, which would require you to insure double crop soybeans if you plant them. And then easing history requirements. We had already done that. So you don't necessarily have to have a history of double crop to get a written agreement or a blanket to insure. So we'll just walk through that. This is what we've done. So in our region, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, all have blanket written agreements available. We just issued out underwriting guidance last week. We'll be issuing a news release next week to kind of explain what that actually means. And I'll walk through that a little bit as we go. So what a blanket written agreement, we've already done the underwriting. We've gone through and set those, made them available to the company. So your crop insurance company, if you contact your agent, go through the company, they can get the offer that has all the terms and conditions in that policy. So your TELs, your rates, all that is built in. That process took us some time to go through, but I think the one thing that we can't offer through blankets is separate enterprise units, trend adjustment, supplemental coverage option, and enhanced coverage option. Those are add-ons that the policy doesn't allow us to do through the written agreement. So that's the drawback to offering coverage this way. The drawback of expanding is it would require all producers that double crop to insure it if they insure their soybeans. So we've tried to do this to see where to provide coverage, but and give you options. If we want to expand down the road, that's always an option. So if you got counties that producers really want to have a program in place to ensure, we can do that so that they can take advantage of some of the things that we can't offer through the blanket written agreement. So each of these offers provides the T yields and the dates. The dates we used are the same as we used in the rest of the states for now. So July 5th is the final planting date for soybeans, double crop soybeans. And then there is a 10-day late planting period. So if you plant after that July 5th, there is a reduction in guarantee of 1% for each of those days, but it does provide you some consistency, and that it was difficult for us to underwrite and try to look at those dates differently than what we've already got, especially as you go further north. The later you plant, the more difficult it is to get a decent double crop yield out of it. So some of the stuff that we've issued, so when you look at the memo, there's some information on there that really is based on what the companies need to tell you as producers what the cost will be and what the coverage is. So we've explained the process, but we've also put in information that companies can use to help provide you the information you need, both running like premium calculator and some of that stuff. What we did in trying to figure out how to underwrite this, what we've done is we've taken some counties as references. We've taken, let's say, the rate for Double crop was 3 times higher based on the risk for FAC, following another crop or double crop. Then we just took that percentage and applied it to the rates in the counties that you farm in. So if you farm in McLean or Winnebago, whatever, we ratioed what the premium increase would be based on what it is in counties where we already have coverage. And we did the same thing with transition yields. And we'll just say 65% or 70% is what the normal yield for double crop. We took that percentage times whatever the T yield for first crop is in those counties. So if you're in McLean or Winnebago or Livingston, we just took whatever that yield is and took it times to 65 or 70%. So that's how we established coverage for this first year. And then we'll see how it goes. I mean, we're trying to be as fair as we can and transparent as how we did it. So that's how that's put together. Also then, where producers can get this information, on our RMA website, we actually have this as a highlight initiative. So if you go to the double cropping initiative, click on there, it'll take you to a page which has all the information. It has frequently asked questions. It has each regional office you can click on, and it has the bulletins. Everything that we've put in there on this initiative is on that page or accessible through that page. And then if you go to the Springfield site, then you can see this is the memo we just issued. And I just put the exhibit. The memo itself will explain how blankets work. The exhibit is for the crop insurance companies. It tells them what the offer number is for each county. And I just took a snippet. So if you're in Boone County and your agent knows that this is the offer, they can go to their company, they can pull up that information and tell you what, and quote you what it would cover, what the coverage would be. So this should make it easy for companies to tell you up front what your coverage is, what your cost is going to be. And so that's how we've done it this year, to try to be as transparent and provide as an easier way for producers to get coverage. It's been kind of a learning experience for us. We've not used this process before. So we've talked to the companies, they've been kept aware that this was happening, but there could be the next week or so, there's still a lot of questions going back and forth, and we're trying to get those taken care of. So. And then I think the last thing on this I wanted to talk about is there is some double crop reminders. So we're not requiring you to have a history of double cropping to get the insurance, but there are some first crop, second crop requirements that are built into the policy that still apply if you get coverage. So if you don't have a history, there are limitations to, let's say you had wheat and it failed, you'd be limited to 35% of that indemnity, that claim, until you get your soybeans through the process. So if you didn't have any claims on soybeans, then you could get your full payment. If you had a claim on soybeans also, because you don't have a double cropping history, that would limit what you got on your wheat on the first crop. So there are some limitations there, and we just wanted to make sure everybody's aware of those up front. That's something that was built into the policy that we couldn't change. And then on expanding coverage for specialty crops. So of our 4 states, Illinois and Indiana don't have specialty type soybeans available to insure. And I'm using Ohio as an example because they do. So the way that the system is set up, what we have in Illinois is no type specified, which basically includes everything. And then Ohio, you have commodity, which is your regular soybean. And then you have the specialty type, low linolenic, all other food grades, low saturated fats, large seeded food grade, high protein, small seeded food grade. So in the slide, talking about the combinations in Ohio, that means there are 84 different types and practices combinations, because for each of these, if you're in an area that has double crop available, you have the commodity type for each of these practices. Then you have all other food grade for each of these practices. So you have a lot of combinations, but you also have a lot of options. So if we look at expanding, I guess what the information we would need is, what types do you want to insure? Do we want to put, if we go down this road, do we want to put everything out there, or are there specific types and in specific areas you want to expand to? Really, it's up to you. There are implications for everybody, which I'll talk about that here in a minute. In Indiana, when we talk to them, they want oleic soybeans, but they don't really want anything else. So that would fall under all other food grades. So we're still in the process of working with them, figure out exactly what they want. Here are the definitions of each of those as far as crop insurance goes. So I guess the information like I said, high oleic falls under all other food grades. But if you've got other types that maybe doesn't fit into any of these categories, that's good for us to know. We can look at, is there something different we need to do? And then this is really the benefit of adding those. The benefit is, if you have a contract price, you can use that contract price. And I just put, this is on our public site. If you pulled up Ohio where they have it, you can pull up all this information. You pull up Illinois, it tells you the same, except we just don't have these different types. So if you're looking at large seeded food grade, the maximum contract price we allow is $19.34. And so that's 1.35 over the price. And so each of those has different threshold. And that would be something that has to be established, probably would follow along with what these are. And then there's also language in the special provisions that tells you what's an acceptable contract. So that would be also something we probably would want to talk about, is the specialty types. What kind of contract does it fit under the contracting aspect we have? And then there's also impacts for everyone. And so I think that's where, when I talked to Andrew before, is, we have all types not specified, we would have to go to commodity. So every producer would have to update their APH database for soybeans. If we make the change, we drop that, everybody goes to commodity type. So it shouldn't be a lot of work, but every producer would have to recertify their APH database for soybeans in order for us to make the change, because it changes all the types from what we have. So that's an important part. The other is, so if you do have specialty types, then you have to break out those databases. So you have to establish, the APH for those types. And then on the transition yield side, we'll set up transitional yields, T yields for those other types. A lot of those, if you look at what we've got out there, are a little bit lower than what your traditional soybean crop T yields are. So you have to keep that in mind. So that's kind of an overview of what we're looking at. We're trying to figure out, we have a fairly tight timeline. You would think we haven't planned the 23 crop where we would have an issue trying to get this done later in the year, but we have to set up all these different databases. We have to set up the TLs. There's margin protection, which has a fall sales closing date. So all that stuff has to be available way in advance of when sales closing is. So producers know what they're insuring. And so the timeline, I mean, we're looking at trying to get something done in February, and we're kind of under the gun. We need your feedback in the next week or so if we want to try to do this for 24. So I know that seems like a long ways off, but for us, the way we have to update systems, and this is a fairly extensive change. So that's kind of an overview of that. So I covered a lot of information, fairly short time. And so I guess I'll turn it over for questions, or if you want to go back to something, or if you have a different question, we'd be happy to handle those too.
So Brian, I guess my question would be that on establishing these T yields and APHs for the specialty crops, I think that was going to be a real challenge for you on what do those crops normally, what can you expect normally out of a yield on those crops, and where do you get that history to set those standards at?
Yeah, I think that is, and that's what we have a fairly short turnaround on. Product management out of our Kansas City office that does the actuarials will do a lot of that. Probably a lot of it will be based on other areas where we have the data, where we have these types and we've got actual yield data. They'll try to use that to set up those databases. But it does get somewhat complicated. I think the other thing I want to mention is it does provide you can insure it under the contract price, but there are not additional loss adjustment or quality adjustments made at the other end on the claim side. So if you have a specific type that has different standards other than what we have for #1 soybeans, and then we wouldn't be able to do quality adjustment differently than what we already do, which basically is on the quality side, I think it's below #4 soybeans where you've got sample grade, then a lot of the other quality adjustments kick in.
This is Ryan Frieders from DeKalb County. I was just wondering where, or maybe I missed it, but where organic production would fall in. I know there's a lot of organic soybeans grown in our area. I guess I wasn't sure which category that would be.
Yeah, so actually we have coverage for, let me go. So the practices, we offer all the practices. So we have irrigated, non-irrigated, where we have irrigated production. And then we have organic and organic transitional in every county. So the practices are there. The following another crop, that's only in those counties where we have double crop coverage, which would be, all the blue counties here, we have FAC coverage. So that's how those practices are set up. So we have those in place. What we don't have is these commodity. We have no type specified, so we don't have any of the specialty types in Illinois right now. And so when we talk to like Indiana Soybean Alliance, they have, the only one they're interested in is a lake, and I think that's in the northern part of Indiana. And they have I think a $2 premium on that. I don't know how their contracts fit into our contract requirements, not gone into that with them, but that's what they're looking at. They weren't interested in anything else. But I guess that's what comes down to what you guys want. What's being grown out there? If we expand, do we expand it everywhere? Are there certain counties that have specialty types that you'd like to see added? And then we kind of do this incrementally. Really that's up to you.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. And the tough part will be the timing of trying to get it done. On the outside, it just seems like, oh, we just add these, but it's a little bit more complicated. And it's a little bit more complicated for producers, whether they have those types or they don't, updating. If you've got special types, updating your APH database, can you separate all that out? How far back? All that stuff plays into that. And then your contract also doesn't meet the contract requirements we have.
Hey, Brian, this is Rick. I saw you had the link earlier for the AIB. Does this group kind of know how to get to the AIB and what the AIB, the actuarial browser is?
I don't
got it called up.
Yeah, if you want to share that, I don't know if you can. Andrew, can you add him, or do you want me to bring it up in mine?
Either should work, but you'd have to stop sharing your screen for him to share
Right.
it.
Go ahead and add Rick, and he can share where to find this information, because I think all the contract information is also on there, all the special provisions. So if you want to look at T yields that are out there for like Ohio, where we offer those, you can do that. If you want to compare it to what we have, it's all out there.
You have to let me know if you can you see the
I see it.
screen?
Yep.
Okay. So basically, you just type in www.rma.usda.gov. It takes you to our public site, which this is the landing page that you're going to land on. Then you've got all this up here. You can go into topics, and there is stuff about the double crop here, but we'll go to tools, and then you got agent locator, summary of business, as a map viewer, we're going to look at the actuarial browser here.
It hasn't switched yet, or for me, it hasn't. There it goes.
Okay. My internet may be pretty slow. I don't know. It is taking some time.
Yep, you're on the next page.
Okay. So then is it showing, it's showing the reinsurance year? And
No,
we'll
you're
put in
still, it's
21.
showing the actuarial browser. Okay, there you go.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and fill it in, and then I'll stop.
So, I mean, this is, if you're looking for crop insurance information for a specific county, everything that's tied to that, the dates, the yields, all that is on this, at this site for every county, for every crop. And so he put in yield protection for soybeans for 23.
Yeah, and under that, you've got revenue, you've got the other plans and stuff. I just picked yield protection. So now is Illinois and DeKalb County all filled in on what you're
Yep.
seeing?
Yep.
All right. Then down here, I'm just gonna hit view report. You'll have to tell me when that pops up. It should come up kind of with the type practice.
Yep, it's there now. So that
Alright.
shows you what's
I'm not
available
gonna-
right now.
Yeah. So yeah, you've got your not following another crop, which would be your normal soybeans. Then it's got the irrigated, then it's got NFAC, non-irrigated, no type specified. I don't know why it's got. But then you get over here and there's your organic certified and then organic transitional for DeKalb County, Illinois. And then I'm not going to click through a lot of these, but then you got all these categories. You got unit structure, prices, T yields, the dates, the rates, subsidy factors. You can look at the preventive planning coverage level. It's got the spatial provisions in there, SCO stuff. So, there's a lot of information in there that you can get on. So I thought, well, take the time to just pop in here real quick, but I'll stop there. And I mean, if anybody gets into it and has got questions, reach out to Brian, or even David Niebert. But that's kind of a tool where you can look and see what's available and kind of what, the T yields and prices are for that county.
So in the special provisions, that's where that information on explains what the types, the specialty types, has those definitions. Also has the grading and a lot of that type of information. So it details what are special provisions for that specific crop in that specific county.
This is Brock Willard. I'm in Western Illinois, and I actually sell crop insurance too. I had a question on if you create these types, and obviously then we have to go ahead and label what is now as no type specified. Is that going to be something that'll be a default going to a commodity, or is that going to be an AIP decision?
I think that'd be an AIP decision. It would depend on how their systems are set up. I mean, the producer still would have to sign to the new database. But it should be fairly transparent because you're not changing anything. You're just changing from no type specified to commodity type.
Okay. And then I would add to that, as far as types needed, I can't really add much to that. I don't know that I have any growers that are growing any specialty beans. Our closest crusher here is Quincy. I would say that Ohio Lake out in Indiana is going to that crush plant in Northwest Ohio, I believe. Andrew would probably know better than me. So I don't know if you guys look at some of that as far as who's crushing some of these specialty types as far as where insurance is needed.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to look at your information as far as what you want and where you might want it. So we're kind of counting on, like the association to kind of guide us on what might be needed out there. So.
Okay.
Well, I live in central Illinois here, and we've got a crusher in Bloomington. We've also got one in Decatur, and I really don't know of any Ohio Lake or anything besides the non-GMO and organic that's being grown around me on contract.
Okay, well, that's good to know. I mean, so I think the other thing is, this isn't necessarily, and I think your email or you're still sharing, Rick.
I'm trying to get out. I think I'm just gonna have to close the station because my share button went away.
It might be at the top of the screen now instead of the bottom.
Wouldn't even let me out of here. I was just gonna close out and
So
won't even
what I
let
was
me quit Zoom.
so what I want to say though is, if moving forward, if we don't want to do it right now, but in a year or so from now, this is something that producers want, I mean, we can entertain doing this at any time. It just, we need a little bit of time to, to get it done ahead of time so that we can get our systems changed, we get the approval, everything in place. So it's not something that it's either done now or it's not done at all. We just wanted to make sure if there's interest out there that we capture it and can try to get it done moving forward.
Okay,
This
did I
is
unshare?
Ryan. I'm sorry.
Did I unshare now? Finally.
I unshared for you.
Okay.
It's Ryan Frieders from DeKalb County again. I know a lot of the specialty programs right now are geared toward longer maturity soybeans, like the 4.0 and greater, which is obviously something that we can't grow up here in DeKalb. But I do think from what I've learned on the association, having been on for a couple of years, that there's going to be more of a movement towards specialization in all the crops that we grow. It just seems like that's what food companies are looking for certain nutritious values or enzyme values. So I think from my perspective, rolling it out on a county by county basis, maybe as a short-term like learning process would make sense. But eventually I hope that my farm can also participate in some of these value-added type soybeans that we have gotten to grow in the past, whether it was just food grade at the time, but the food grade category has kind of expanded so much into these really special niche beans. So I hope to be able to take advantage of those when they release the varieties for our area.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I think that would be, and even what we're looking at, we might do in Indiana. I think like the Ohio Lake is only in the northern part of Indiana. Is if we do something there, we may only do a set of counties and see how that works, and make sure we got that right before we move forward. We do the same in Illinois. If you've got some areas where it'd be a good place to start, we could do that, and then kind of see how, make sure that the transition is fairly smooth, and then expand that on as time goes by.
This is Brock again. I just kind of, as Ryan was talking about that, and this is, I don't know if it actually really works entirely, but is it something that maybe it would be good to have a county in the state to where if we want to do written agreements, we could use as a reference county, or that would be used as a reference county, maybe is a way to see where it would be wanted. I don't know if that's practical in your guys' end or not.
Yeah. I mean, I think, and what we've done where we've got those requests, I mean, we'll find a reference county wherever we can. Sometimes we may have to go to Michigan or Ohio, which makes it a little more difficult, but we can do that now. If we put, it's all based on experience too. So, if we set up a county, if we don't have much experience there, we don't know if we did it right there, if that makes sense. So
yeah, no, I just I remember we had one that when I worked for an AIP, we always had one out of like Oklahoma we used in like Western
right.
states.
Yeah,
It was like I think it was an Indian reservation or something, to be honest. That they just kind of used as a guinea pig to reference other places. So I didn't know if that was something that was practical here or not.
Yeah. So, and I'll mention one more thing. And so anytime questions come up, whether you want to contact us directly or you want to go through Andrew and the association, either works for us. I mean, we want to make sure the program works. And, agriculture changes, the program needs to change with it. And so we're trying to make sure and review these periodically to make sure that we have the policies in place that work for you. So anything comes up, we want to make sure that we try to address it. As we can't just do it like, all right, we need this and we need it tomorrow. It doesn't necessarily work that way. But if you can give us a little bit of a head start, we'll try to make sure and make changes along the way. We're now on a process where we're reviewing crops, every 6 years. And we're doing an in-depth review. And we're also combining growing season observations where we're going out to the field. This last year, we went out mostly on like relay cropping soybeans. It's fairly new. And we provide coverage there, but it has to be through a written agreement. So we're trying to build that knowledge base so that we make sure that the offers that we have out there make sense and work for producers. So
one question that I was submitted through our feedback, and I know that board member is not on here today, so I'll ask it, and it sounds like we have some time to work on the specialty crop issues. His question was noting that a lot of he does have some specialty crop contracts. They have a mix and variety on their farm of conventional and specialty crop, that a lot of specialty crop contracts are not public or not, you're not supposed to share their contract on some of those. And he was concerned that the publication, the documents we sent out from you guys said that you needed to actually share a copy of the contract to be allowed to be insurable in this program. I guess, what thoughts are behind that, and anything we can share back with our board member?
yeah, I think that part is to make sure that the contract meets our requirements and to justify them being able to use that higher price. And then it also provides the price information that's needed to give them that higher contract price. So, and I think they have till acreage reporting date to provide that information. And it's not shared, but it is a requirement to use that. So,
and I assume that the companies initiating the contracts are aware of that change and will allow a grower to do that, to share that contract and not be in breach of contract for sharing that with RMA.
yeah, I would think, and Dave had worked some on the contract. Is that the way you understand it, Dave, as far as how they have to provide that information?
Yes, they have to provide it by acreage reporting date. I've really heard no problems of processors saying, or processors or the buyer saying, depending on what the crop is, supplying the contract, it's supplied to the insurance company by the acreage reporting date. Yeah.
And it's supplied by the grower, or is it supplied by or do these companies have to register a specific variety they're growing as eligible under?
The grower submits the contract to the insurance company.
Yes, Andrew, I'm on. That's
Oh, you are?
yes, that is in complete violation of that contract. It's clearly states on that contract. This is a sole contract between us, the company, and you, and it's not to be disclosed to anyone.
Okay. So I think that's something we would have to, we could follow up on too, just to see, raise that issue. I don't know if it's been an issue anywhere else or not.
Okay, I understand. I'm just saying that, according to what it reads, you're not to disclose the terms of that contract.
Okay.
So I would assume that in Ohio, where this is already being done, that mechanism probably have been thought out a little bit as to how that works.
Yeah. We'll do some follow up, and I'll get back to you, Andrew, on that.
Okay.
Hey, Brian, would it be good to get what the company, what processor we're talking about here for company?
I don't know if it, I mean, I don't know if it's necessary or not.
Okay. I just didn't know if the,
What type of, what specialty type is it though? That would be
It's-
helpful.
It's seed corn production, and they get very ticky about that.
Okay. And seed, okay, and that's a totally different, we have a different policy for hybrid seed corn. And so that's held differently. I think Brock, you were gonna say something.
No, I was just echoing what you're saying, that seed corn's a different policy that.
Green
Right.
beans, is the same thing. In other words, we don't disclose the contract of our green beans.
So what about seed beans? I know seed beans are different than seed corn, how they're handled in a lot of different ways. Traditionally, have there been separate insurance policies on seed beans, or are those treated differently under this consideration?
Yeah, we don't have a separate policy right now on seed beans. The hybrid, when we're talking about hybrid seed corn, there's a specific policy, and we get that information directly from the processor to set up coverage there. We're actually looking at the hybrid seed policy this year, and so I don't know if there'll be some changes with it, but we typically get that directly from them.
Jeff, I don't know if you're still on, but I know you had a few questions as well you brought up about current APH and how some of that is calculated on some of these other varieties.
Yeah, Andrew, Brian, Jeff O'Connor here. I'm driving out to Schooler Grain, who does specialty grains in Omaha. They're working with a group of farmers. But here, so I don't have my notes in front of me since I'm moving, but I did have a question, Brian, on, and I hope this is coming through fine, on the specialty crop. Andrew, is it possible? So if you look at Schooler Grain, Cargill, DeLong, Benson Hill is now a very large grower out there, or producer. Can we get an idea on acres on what specialty crops? Because what I've seen, and I think Brock mentioned it, or maybe it was Ryan, there's more and more niche markets that are coming for very specific soybeans. I've been growing for a half dozen years, and the options that are out there are increasing with higher premiums. I know, and what I'm going to Schooler for, they are looking to find ways to retain more of their growers, to have these expansions. They want to know what makes this more attractive to us. Insurance would go a long way towards that. The thought of starting over for each specialty type, I may have to farm another 50 years to get an appropriate track record for each piece of ground, for each variety that I could raise. So I like what's being offered. Boy, I think there's a lot to work out. And it actually seems quite cumbersome, but I'd love to know more. First of all, a background on the acres, I think, would be helpful by talking to these companies to see where is the largest demand.
Yeah, and Jeff, it's good to hear your voice again. I haven't talked to you for a while, but a lot of the conversations we had on double crop, you helped us out quite a bit, so I appreciate that. For us to get that information, I don't know if we're the best avenue, whether that's something the association can do, or that how available that information is for us to try to gather.
So in terms of acreage, I mean, it just depends on what you're looking at. I mean, you look at specific varieties, it's harder for us to get that out specifically. We know we can speak generally non-GMO, GMO acres, organic acres, those things. Hyoleic, we might be able to figure out exactly by talking to, because the players are smaller in that pool and talking to who those are. But Something we could make an estimate on for sure. I'm not sure how accurate it'll be.
And I don't know, would this be something Grain and Feed would be able to they have that information or not? I don't know.
They might. I think part of the problem is some of their members may not touch some of these specialty varieties at all in the
Right.
chain, right? So you look at Benson Hill. I don't think Benson Hill, they don't deal. They're a closed loop system. They don't operate with a local grain elevator at all, or even a larger other entities. They operate more independently. So it would just take having some conversations, I think.
Okay.
Brian, this is Jeff again. I think my concern is that most farmers would not even be trying these specialty soybeans if the yields were not very comparable to what normal soybeans are. What they're giving on is, hey, their weed control program has to change a lot. But if the yield is not there, we're not going to do it. And the thought that, but if I were able to ensure, a $4 a bushel premium on a clear Hylam non-GMO, that is incredibly attractive to me. The thought of having to go back to using T yields when I know the yields are very, very comparable, it actually turns me off from those markets.
Right. And so I guess there's two things. One, if you've got some of those where you have some history where you can break that out, then you can use that history that you have. I'd have to go back and probably could talk to product management to see, we'd have to look at what we insure of the different types and the history of where those yields are at. So we issue, we have 84 different type practices in Ohio. How many of those we actually insure enough to have decent yield data? I don't know, but we can, maybe that's the conversation we need to have internally too, is trying to figure out what historical information we have that can be brought into play when we try to set up T yields for some of these specialty crops. And some we may just not have enough information on to do something with it.
So if you did,
Brian,
go ahead, for Jeff.
Are there, you've mentioned Ohio a couple of times and I was aware of them. Are there other states that have specialty soybeans insurable?
Yeah, in our region, I look at Michigan and Ohio. There are nationwide, there's quite a few. There's I think Iowa does also, but I can follow up on that too. And we can try to dig out some of that information, see what we have. So, and then I think a combination of seeing what we can get put together, then also what information you can put together for us. If we're not looking at 24, it gives us some time to figure out where we're at and what's the best way forward.
Hey, Brian.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just was thinking a little bit more on this contract thing, and the main thing we need on the contract is something that shows the grower's commitment to grow, the buyer's commitment to buy the crop, what the crop is, the price, and the acreage. So I don't know what the hang up with the company is on submitting the contract. There may be some information in there that's,
Right. Well, I think these were
confidential that they want to keep, but we might be able to redact that and it still be an acceptable contract. I don't know. I'll talk to my people, my contract people, and see what, that I know, and see what we can on our end, what would possibility, and see if that could possibly solve the issue.
Yeah. And I think what Brad was talking about, he was talking about hybrid seed corn, which is totally different. So,
right.
So it may or may not be, it may or may not be an issue.
If nothing else, I'll find out if anybody else has run across it. I haven't as of yet until today, but there's always a first,
Yep.
Brian, Jeff O'Connor, one last comment. Hey,
Uh-huh.
thank you for working on this. This is something that's needed attention. I've been nothing but encouraged to hear how you have worked with ISA staff on this and to see changes coming, what I say, forward more quickly than I would have expected from the industry. Thanks a lot. I appreciate all the effort.
Well, and I appreciate the time you've taken and the board here and the association. I know Andrew and I have had a number of conversations. You know, we want to make sure and do what we can to give you the products you need. We don't always have the answers, and like some of the stuff we talked about today, we need to find out some more information, but we'll also need some information from you to try to make it work. So, but I appreciate everybody's time today. Always appreciate having the conversation. We always learn a lot, and then hopefully we can provide some valuable products that you can use too along the way.
Well, before we leave, I'll give you the tougher one. Have you guys looked at rates on particularly soybeans, also corn in the state? I mean, we are, as a loss ratio, we're pretty low compared to a lot of areas. Kind of seems like we're out of whack with some where money is flowing to in the crop insurance program. Is that being looked at? Kind of how's that setting, I guess, with RMA at this point?
Actually, those, and we don't do that in our office, but that is done through product management. Those are reviewed. I mean, we look at 20 years and it's supposed to be county specific. So when we look at rates, it's looking at historically over the last 20 years, and the formulas, I can't go through all that because I don't know if I know the ins and outs that well, but that's the historical, and they drill down to the counties. We do review them to make sure that nothing stands out. There isn't an issue somewhere, but that's how those are set up. So it should be reflective of the experience in the county. But, and the goal is to have, it's one for one, as far as money coming in, money going out. We're looking at toll premium compared to toll indemnity over time. And so that doesn't include the that's not with the subsidy. I mean, we look at with the subsidy in there, right? So.
Yeah, that's what I think. It was done by Gary Schnittke and some others. Andrew can verify that of U of I, and that's where they've looked at. I believe it was a pretty long window. It might have been close to 20 years, and even with that, we were still as a state, I think maybe sub 80 on beans and just over 80 on corn. But I'm probably going to be misquoted on that now. But it was something. It was fairly dramatic. And so, like I say, I wondered that wasn't your department, but maybe you can plant a seed in the right one.
Yeah. And I think if I've got, I mean, they do like a review every 3 years on those, update everything, and then we set targets as far as it can only go up. So there are triggers in there as far as protecting rates that might go up in some areas, which in Illinois hasn't been too big a deal. So luckily.
Yeah. So yeah, no, that's as far as stuff that'll affect all of us, that would actually affect all of us. So
yep, you're right.
Wanted to make sure and pepper it in there.
I think there's interest in having conversations with DC about how to look at some of these programs, and we know that this is a regional, not new regional issue with that, but it's something that as it comes back around and the topic keeps getting brought up, there is an interest in diving into those loss ratios and getting those numbers closer to where they perhaps could be, because we know there are regions that are over 1 in their loss ratio as well. Not so much your region, some others perhaps out there.
Yep.
There's more of an FYI. I think that you may hear us talking about that. DC folks, if they go, what the hell are they talking about?
Yeah, and I think on a lot of those conversations, those would, so RMA structure, we're part of insurance services, which has 10 regional offices. Then product management, which manages the policies, but also does the actuarial stuff. And then compliance that plays, I guess, more of a regulatory role with the agency, making sure the crop insurance companies are, the policies are sold the way they're supposed to, and the loss estimates are done right. And so.
Well, I don't want to cut off any more questions from our growers on the call or staff if they have any questions to bring up, but not seeing anybody popping off mute. Appreciate your team here, Brian. I think you needed feedback from us by February on the planning date changes.
Actually, the planning date changes are in place. If we wanted to do something with specialty types, we would need it by the 1st of February if we want to do it for 24. But it sounds like we can work towards that, but maybe not for 24, if that's the feedback I've gotten so far. If we want to do something different, that's fine too.
It does sound like it needs maybe some more in-depth conversations with some folks. And I know we have some other specialty, well, not specialty, but folks who grow other things than a few specialty varieties. That Jeff obviously grows some, but with some other folks on the board we may want to talk to and have some more outreach on that more broadly. So I think there are still some questions we'd like to see and continue to see what you guys develop on it as well.
All right. Well, let's continue that conversation after planting sometime. And anything comes up on the double crop questions, make sure and let us know. We'll try to address that too.
Will do. Well, thank you.
All right.
And hope everyone has a, if you're shoveling later today, make sure protect your lower back. And don't throw that out if you're plowing, be safe out there too. If you're just sitting inside, be safe doing that too, I guess. So have a great rest of the day, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.